First item on the agenda is discussion.
Yes. I would like to approve 4C.
Okay. That's all you have to say at this point.
Okay.
So, all in favor of approving the consent agenda with the exception of 4C, which will be taken up in the next item, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes. Next item is items removed from consent agenda, so that would be appointment to Recreation Advisory Committee.
Yeah, we want to hold on this item and defer it to a later meeting so we can get some more information.
Okay, thank you. Next item, item 5, oh no, item 6, sorry. Approval of the August 15th village board minutes. Is there a motion to approve?
I move to approve the August 15, 2016 village board minutes.
Second.
Discussion?
Yeah, I gave the village clerk edit to item 5C, consideration of authorized financial institutions. The list wasn't contained in the finance director's memo, but in the motion should have read. Trustee Marr moved and seconded by Trustee Bachhorst to approve the addition of Oppenheimer Investments to the authorized financial institution list contained in the Appendix C of the village cash and investment policy, which was last approved by the village board on March 18, 2013. Motion carried 5-0.
And I have a change to 10B, last bullet. I think it's supposed to say services that include food with alcohol rather than alcohol without food. It just says with.
Which way? The way it's... I'm sorry.
What
So it would say services
Is
that
correct?
include.
Yes.
Okay, so the change.
change to
I wasn't sure what you were saying. Okay.
I have one more question. And then under 5, number 5, talks about health insurance cost sharing. I just have, I'll probably just hand it to you if there's no objections, this is pretty long, but I just want to note that the reason why I said no, why I really no, is Mr. Rosette stated concerns that the scorecard was too easy to achieve and would not result in the desired outcome of increased employee wellness and decreased health plan costs. And that's what I really know.
Wait, everybody okay with that?
Item 6, referring to the July 11th village board meetings, it indicates in paragraph 4 that Trustee Zolli explained that rather than based on extensive community input, presentation stated that based on geographic and economic constraints and environmental and community interests. The SIC has directed us. You got it.
And then just a general question.
Are you okay with that one?
For like an item 6 for the future, can we state what the topic was in the minutes? When we asked for it to be amended, it says item 9.1, but rather than kind of go back and look at item 9.1, is there a possibility of the topic? I can read one. So it just says, it was requested that the minutes be amended in item 9.1 to indicate that blah, 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 blah. And I'm assuming that 9/1 was about Halloween meeting, I don't.
Wanting me to answer that question, or you wanting to make a change for future minutes?
We can do it for future minutes, I'm just asking if that's possible.
I'm sure it's on the topic anyway.
Well, it's by committee, and then it refers to what the action, how it's agended, so it might not be a conflict.
Instead of saying 9/1, or in addition to 9/1, we say Halloween or the ghost train or whatever.
9/1 parentheses.
Right, because it's unclear here, so.
It would make it easier to. Okay, any other comments? Okay, we have a motion and a second, and we've had some recommended changes. Everybody who is okay with that, and approving the recommended changes, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes. That takes us to item 7. Take a motion to approve the village board minutes of September 19th.
I move to approve the September 19th, 2016 board minutes as presented.
Second.
Discussion?
Go ahead.
On items for future consideration where I asked to discuss the closure of Capitol Drive, I mean, I didn't go back and look at the tape, but I thought, I was kind of looking to see if anyone else was interested in discussing it, and nobody else seemed interested in discussing it, so I don't believe that I asked for that to be a future item, but I would like in the discussion of this, which is where would be item 9, I would like there to just be a sentence saying that I expressed opposition to closing Capitol Drive during rush hour for this event.
That's why we call it.
Yeah, I don't think I mean, if other people are interested in discussing it, I think.
Okay, on item strategic initiatives, I guess it's item D.
Item what?
D, 10D, 10D. Is it 10D? Yes, 10D. Under the professional service agreement, that's number 1. I just want it to be noted that I asked that at future board, where the board members are requested to approve future contracts, that a term sheet be included.
That what?
A term sheet be included.
I recall you saying. Any other comments? Okay, we have a motion and a second with some changes. All in favor of approving the September 19th village board minutes with the changes as discussed here, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes. Next item is citizens to be heard. This item is for matters not on this evening's agenda. Discussion may follow comment on non-agenda items, or discussion and action may come in future meetings. Is there anybody who wishes to be heard on non-agenda items this evening? That was your cue.
Just had to ask me, I thought I was number 8, I guess we're at number 8.
Go fast.
My name is Liz, and I live at 4117 North Woodburn. And I'm here as the result of a dog complaint, which I'm not going to go into here. I realize that this isn't the place for it. But rather, I'm here today with questions about compliance with ordinances and also complaint procedures. So just a small bit of background, and I promise not to get into any more detail. I'm a landlord at that address, and the landlord that owns the building to the north rented the apartment to a family that has 3 dogs, including 2 German Shepherds. Our village ordinance allows 2 pets. So I immediately called the landlord before he rented the apartment. The existing tenants told me about it, told him it was a violation. He's an attorney, he said, I'm not a real estate attorney, and, you know, basically, so what? So he did rent the apartment to them, they moved in, and I had some telephone conversations with Mr. Schwartz, and I guess that he has determined that the procedure that he's going to follow is to have the village attorney address the waiver request from the existing tenants that have the 3 dogs. So back to my original point, which was compliance with ordinances. It seems to me that having a village ordinance that restricts households to having 2 pets is really a lifestyle ordinance. And my question is, why would we waive it? Mr. Schwartz had mentioned to me that he's never not waived a request. I can see why there would be a procedure in place to allow waiving the ordinance if somebody has a cat, a gerbil, and maybe a parakeet. But in this case, 2 German Shepherds and a 3rd dog, that to me would seem like a perfect reason not to waive it. It's in a very dense area, Woodburn. Their building is 12 feet away from me. So again, you know, I just raised the question, why have the ordinances if we always waive them? And as a property owner, my request is that they not be waived. And then my second point has to do with procedure. And when we first started, Mr. Schwartz was going to have, when he received the application for the waiver, he was going to have a meeting where, at my request, where I would be present, the landlords applying for the waiver would be there, and the landlord would be there. And now that it's been, based on the most recent correspondence, now that it's been passed to the village attorney for a decision, the way that I'm reading it is I will be totally out of it. And if the village attorney decides to grant the waiver, then I would have to appeal, I guess, to the village board to have that revisited. I don't think that's a very efficient way to handle complaints. I think that the way that we were going to do it initially made a lot of sense. Let's bring all the parties together. So all the information comes out, not just one party's version of it. So that's really all that I wanted to say.
I think it's my understanding that the village manager, Chris Schwartz, is working on a report and it's going to be completed within the next week or 2.
But how about the hearing process? Am I correct that I will not be a part of that and the landlord will not be a part of that? It will just be with the Duckworths?
No, that's not true. I'll send you, the letter went out today, that gives the procedure, or went out last week, that gives the procedure, and today a questionnaire went out. And I can give them.
Now, the letter you sent out last week actually did, that's exactly what it said. It said that the village attorney would review the application, not with my involvement.
That way, but I'll look at it again and see if that's what it said. I don't know if that's what it said.
Okay. Then can I go back to my original question, which is, if we have lifestyle ordinances, why would we not abide by them? I'm just wondering if anybody has any thoughts on that. Why have the ordinance?
I have thought on that, yeah. I just thought if there are ordinances on the books that we don't want to enforce them, maybe we'll look at changing ordinances.
But would something like limiting pets per household to 2 pets, would that be something that you would think you would waive?
We don't waive, we change ordinances.
Well, I guess as a taxpayer, I would be upset if you would change that ordinance to 3. Because I think in a community with the density of Shorewood, having in an apartment 12 feet away from another building, 2 German Shepherds and a 3rd dog doesn't make any sense. Anybody else?
Well, I would imagine it's a health and safety issue, health department. I mean, if you had a lot of, I would set it to, they may have been aiming for a person that has 50 cats in their house. I mean, so there is other concerns besides just lifestyle concerns. There's health and safety and building occupancy and other issues. So
I guess I'm still a little unclear. As as an owner in Shorewood, I would not like to see that increase to 3, where we might have a situation like I have with my neighbors, where there are 2 huge German Shepherds that are not leash trained, 12 feet away from my house, only partially fenced in. Why would we change that ordinance?
There is not a proposal before us to change it, and I understand the village attorney is reviewing the situation for review.
Our dog's supposed to be on the leash at all times. They're, what?
Not in the backyard.
Unless they're fenced in, yeah, but I.
Well, just to give you some idea what these dogs are like, the owner keeps them tethered to a leash in the backyard.
So they bark a lot?
I'm afraid of the dogs, you know. I feel the north side is not fenced in. The dogs can get through there. I've observed them walking the dogs on a leash just twice, and they're not leash trained.
So they are restrained all the time, I mean, they're not running around jumping on people.
Well, so far. But there are ways for them to escape. The previous tenants had a Westie who figured out how to bounce against the gate door and open the gate. These dogs haven't figured that out yet.
As far as we're going to get tonight is the fact that, you know, there's the report coming out
I'll
from,
get the board. You have one of them already, I'll get you the second one.
But can I just underline one thing, or understand where the board stands on one thing? In general, if there is an ordinance in place, is there an intention on the part of the village to enforce that ordinance? Because it doesn't feel that way to me.
I don't know all of the details.
And I'm not talking specifically about this ordinance.
Certainly if there's an ordinance, there's an interest to do it, but there are, you know, possibilities for waiving ordinances too. There's circumstances. And I'm talking in general, not this particular one.
Okay. So as I understand it, Mr. Schwartz, any meeting that occurs with the Duckworths will include at least me, if not the landlord.
I will see it tomorrow. I will send you the letter again, and another one that went out today.
Is that what it's going to say?
That is referenced about meeting with the neighbors, and ask you if you'd like to meet with the neighbors, if there's a question on it.
The letter that you sent out said, first the village attorney will make a decision, and then perhaps.
I will send out a letter to the village board, so you all have it in front of you, and it should be talked about, maybe up to at least you'll have it in front of you, so you know exactly what I'm doing.
Interesting. All right. Thank you. Okay, is there anybody else that wishes to be heard on non-agenda items? Then we'll move on to item 9, swearing in of police officers. Please come.
All right.
Okay, we're on item 9, swearing in of police officers. Chief Nemeth.
All right, this is a great day. Maybe not for everybody, but for us at the police department it is. And certainly for our new officers it is, and for our promotion, so I'm excited about it. We're going to do 2 new employees, 2 new police officers that we hired today. And then we're going to do a promotion to sergeant after that. So first is Sydney Weisflow, if you want to come up. Sydney's from Oak Creek. She went to Oak Creek High School. She played basketball and attended the University of St. Francis in Illinois. We have quite a few basketball players, so we're putting together a team here. She has her bachelor's in science in criminal justice. She went to the MATC Academy, Police Academy, graduated this year from that. And she went through a hiring process, and her, along with Halston, came out on top. And so we're very excited to have them here. And so without further ado, we're going to have her sworn in, and then her mother is going to come up and pin her. And hopefully there's no blood, right? All right.
Raise your right hand. I, Cindy E. Weisbach,
I, Cindy E. Weisel,
who have been appointed
who have been appointed
to the position of police officer
to the position of police
in
officer
the village of Shorewood,
in the village of Shorewood,
swear that I will support
swear that I will support
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Wisconsin,
and the Constitution of the State of Wisconsin,
to enforce all laws of the United States,
to enforce all laws of the United States,
the State of Wisconsin,
the State of Wisconsin,
the ordinances of the village of Shorewood,
the ordinances of the village of Shorewood,
obey all of the lawful orders
obey all of the lawful orders
of my superior officers,
of my superior officers,
and faithfully discharge
and faithfully discharge
the duties of my office
the duties of my office
to the best of my ability.
to the best of my ability.
So help me God.
To the best of my ability, so help me God.
Congratulations.
We got faces making pictures, there we go. All right, congratulations. All right, Halston, you want to come up? Our next officer is Halston Wolbert. He grew up in New Glarus. I had to ask him where that was. He said it was about 2 hours southeast of Milwaukee. I said, is that Lake Michigan or what? So he is a graduate of UWM, and he did not park on Prospect. I know there's some people out there. Inside joke. He's got his degree in criminal justice. He's also a first lieutenant in the Army National Guard. So that's a great thing. He also graduated from the MATC Academy along with Sydney this year. And he too went through our entire hiring process and came out on the top 2. So we're excited to have him here. So without further ado.
Raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Halston J. Wolbert,
I, Halston J. Wolbert,
who have been appointed
who have been appointed
to the position of police officer
to the position of police officer
in the village of Shorewood,
in the village of Shorewood,
swear that I will support
swear that I will support
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Wisconsin,
and the Constitution of the State of Wisconsin,
to enforce all laws of the United States,
to enforce all the laws of the United States,
the State of Wisconsin,
the State of Wisconsin,
the ordinances of the village of Shorewood,
the ordinances of the village of Shorewood,
obey all of the lawful orders of my superior officers,
to obey all the lawful orders of my superior officers,
and faithfully discharge
and faithfully discharge
the duties of my office
the duties of my office
to the best of my ability.
to the best of my ability.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
The father will pin on his badge. You got to turn a little bit so you can get the photo op there. Congratulations. All right. Now the fun stuff, right? All right, so most of you know Ron Rogers. He's been with our department for a little less than a year. But before that, he was with the State Patrol. We won't hold that against him. And then after that, he was an officer at the UWM Police Department. And then we were luckily, we stole him away from UWM. So we're very excited that he came here 9 months ago. I'm even more excited that he stepped up and wanted to be a sergeant in our department and in Shorewood. He's an outstanding individual. Going to Cardinal Stritch University. He's also a staff sergeant in the Air Force National Guard. Been there 8 years doing that. He also does 2 nonprofits in the city of Milwaukee. And he's working with the school district and kind of bridging that gap between law enforcement and youth in the city of Milwaukee. So we're really excited for that. We're hoping and encouraging him to do that in our schools as well. So we're really excited to have him, and even more so now to be a supervisor. So if his sister Ruby would like to come up in just a second, that was a teaser. I swear I'm in for
I, Durante Rogers,
Rogers,
who have been appointed
who have been appointed
to the position of police sergeant
to the position of police sergeant
in the village of Shorewood,
in the village of Shorewood,
swear that I will support
swear that I will support
the Constitution of the United
the
States
Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of
and
Wisconsin,
the Constitution of the State of Wisconsin,
to enforce all of the laws of the United States,
to enforce all the laws of the United States,
the State of Wisconsin,
the State of Wisconsin,
the ordinances of the village of Shorewood,
the ordinances of the village of Shorewood,
obey all of the lawful orders of my superior officers,
obey all of the lawful orders of my superior officers,
and faithfully discharge
and faithfully discharge
the duties of my office
the duties of my office
to the best of my ability,
to the best of my ability,
so help me God.
so help me God.
Thank you.
So in closing, I just want to thank the village board for allowing us to do it here. I think it's a great tradition. It's a great honor to have them sworn out in front of the board. So we're very thankful for this, and it's a great day for them. Just don't remember, or don't forget how excited you were today. When it's 3 a.m. and it's snowing and get your car stuck, you gotta get it out of your car. So thank you, appreciate it.
Welcome to the two new ones and the promotion.
Welcome to stay. Thanks for having us.
Sherry. We have a proclamation for customer service. And I shall read it. Whereas in 1992, the U.S. Congress proclaimed customer service week and nationally recognized celebrated annually during the first full week of October. And whereas Customer Service Week is an international event devoted to recognizing the importance of customer service and to honoring the people who serve and support customers each day with the highest degree of care and professionalism. And whereas our employees, whether working in the front lines or behind the scenes, demonstrate courtesy to our customers, which goes a long way toward ensuring customer satisfaction. And whereas we listen to our employees and empower them with opportunities to make a difference, thereby providing better service. And whereas our employees' professionalism and commitment to providing exceptional customer service, every customer, every time, to our residents, vendors, and others, is very much appreciated. Therefore, I, in honor of our service champions, do recognize the week of October 3 through 7, 2016 as Customer Service Week, and further extend appreciation to all of our employees for the vital service they perform and their exemplary dedication to the village of Shorewood. And for anybody that hasn't felt the customer service, you gotta come to the desk here or just see it with the people that work in the various departments too. You do a great job. Okay, that takes us to new business, item 11. We have a couple public safety things on here, and I'm wondering if those are both going to be,
They were removed, correct?
yeah. Okay, so both,
They'll be on the 17th.
so both the item 1 and item 2 on public safety are deferred until the next meeting. And that takes us then to item 11B, Public Works, Trustee Amenta, consideration of recommended bike share locations in the village of Shorewood as part of the awarded transportation program.
Right, well, we've talked about bubbler bikes many times before, and this has been a multi-year process, and we do have a federal grant that's looking for 80% of the cost. We have a public meeting also where the consultants reviewed proposed locations, station locations, and the Public Works Committee discussed the 9 station locations. And I think today we want to simply approve station locations so the consultants can move forward with survey work and the digging. Yes, but I guess a formal, we want to wait until next meeting when we'll have an actual term sheet that will discuss in more detail the terms of our agreement with Butler. That will be our final approval, but we did want to at least talk about the station locations tonight and be able to give them enough direction to be able to move forward on their work. So we did talk about all 9 of the proposed locations. I think we were okay with them all, and then we did discuss the question, the most eastern station on Capitol, whether to locate it at Atwater Park or 2 blocks west of there on Capitol and Downer. And I believe the committee felt that the Downer location was, for a variety of reasons, the preferred location for that particular station. We did talk a little bit about some issues at the Edgewood and Oakland station, if we had a repeat of the flooding that we've had in that location before. So we did talk a little bit about how the station would manage if it was completely submerged, and I mean, the Butler people may speak to that in more detail, but basically the bikes would be totally fine at the station once it dried out, should be fine also. So
Plus they're insured.
Plus, they're insured, and it would be their problem anyhow. We don't have any financial, once we put our share in for the actual installation, all the operating, we're kind of out of it. It becomes a Butler. So, I don't know if the full board has any other questions, or if we want to discuss the station location.
I have a question. Are we adopting the 9 locations tonight?
We're kind of,
I think we should. I mean, I'm okay with that unless Chris has a big problem with it.
Well, I was
Just
just-
identify the location.
Based on Allison's initial discussion as I brought up, the term sheet is not associated with this, so the idea was to at least give us direction on the 9, and then come back with approval with the actual term sheet and the issues that are not in the term sheet about what happens at the end of the day. It's not successful. What happens to the bikes and the stations, number 1, and 2, what happens if the grant, the
but
bids
these are term
denied?
sheet items, this isn't location items.
No, right, but they can be related. So I was, and I'm sure Allison will talk about that a little bit more, but there is an in-between that we did talk about. So I can bring that up later, how we could direct that.
I just would like to at least give them direction so they can keep doing their work. I mean, if we just give direction and don't formally say these are the sites, that's fine. But,
They're not acting on the contract, not agreeing with the contract, acting on it, and certainly gives direction that they will continue.
Yeah.
I just don't want them to be doing Debbie's hotline things or anything that incurs expenses on their part if we're going to change it.
right. But do you have a?
I have a concern, is it okay if I just list it and then before we make a motion? So I have a couple of concerns. My major concern is set amount of funding. And I believe the initial proposal from Butler was $55,000 per docking station for the equipment and the facility that goes in front of in one of these locations. And then when he came back this last presentation a month ago or so, he had mentioned the costs were going up with the newer installations. And then when I read the report, it talked about that our electricity hookups are going to be a little more difficult in many of the locations proposed due to the fact that we can't wire into the street light or the street lights, I think, we can do traffic lights and not street lights. So my concern, without a term sheet in front of us or without, I'm concerned that the motion gets worded correctly for the reason that I don't want to approve 9 stations and go on record approving 9 stations if the cost of those stations are going to be higher than we have available. So I don't know that answer yet, and I don't know how to phrase the motion, but I have no interest in going above what we have already budgeted for the initial round of other installations. I actually have an interest in reducing it, but just saying that for today, if the costs of the installation are higher than the $50,000 that we were quoted at the get-go, then we may only be able to do 7 with the amount of funding we budgeted. So then approve the 9 locations today, and then the funding comes in, and do we rank them? How do we go about then saying, okay, these are the 2 we're not going to fund?
And I think we should make it clear for people in the audience that there's a grant that's taking care of 80% of this, so 20% is on us.
Right.
So the 50,000 per station is improved village cost.
Right.
Okay, well, people may not know that.
Right, but we only have a set amount of federal funds and a set
Right.
amount that we budgeted for our match.
Right.
And so I'm just saying.
Well, I agree with what you're saying, but I just want to make that clear that, we're not talking
Right.
50,000 times 9.
So I don't know if it goes into the.
But I'm not sure, well, so we got into some discussion about what's appropriate for the term sheet discussion
Right.
versus the station, because I think the concept, not my concept, but presented by the consultants, was that could be something that's handled. So if we go out to bid and the bid comes in $100,000 over, we could not award and make the decision then to take out 1 or 2 stations and rebid at fewer number of stations. That's one option. Or we could enter into negotiations with the low bidder and try to go and renegotiate those. So I mean, that's almost an issue that I think, because the feeling was also, we have to go out to bid and see. Everything may come in fine. If it doesn't, then we have some options, and I believe we would have time within the project schedule to do a second bid if we wanted to do that, so.
Or negotiate.
Yeah, or maybe some other options, but I mean, that's almost like a bidding procedure thing, so.
Got it. I just don't, there are residents that, there are both sides, residents that want more and residents that want less. And all I'm saying is, I don't want someone who wants 9, and if we don't have the funding, to come back and say, well, you said this was a great location, why are you not funding it?
Well, I agree with you. If this went in so high that to fund 9, the village would have to kick in another 100,000 or 50,000 or even 10,000. I would not be in support of that. But given the budget that we have, and so in the term sheet, as I understand it, is really our issues, with Butler as the operator of these stations, which is again separate from the contract with the bidding issues. So. But I agree with you. I mean, we may want to say these are, if we are in a situation where we cannot fund all 9, these would be the 1 or 2 that we would have. Yeah, I'm fine with doing that.
I'm leery of letting it go, like, I almost want to adopt each station separately, or have a list that says, the 2 that we would not fund.
Well, I think correct
You mean go out for bid each station separately?
No.
That's what you just said, right?
Somehow.
That would be.
I mean, I had 2
That would be
stations, and I
No, she's saying approve the station locations.
or rank them.
I think what we're asked to do tonight is give approval to staff and our consultants to begin or to initiate the necessary evaluation and permitting requirements for all stations, regardless of how many we use or which of the ones that are on the book are on the plan right now we ultimately use. So I hear what you're saying, but we don't need to have that discussion now for them to start their evaluation, correct?
If you're gonna use 6 of the 9, you're still gonna have to do that process for
Right.
all 9 before you decide which ones to use.
Mhm.
Almost is a good point.
Based on this, would you like to make a motion? You don't have to.
I guess I would say,
Discussion of the motion.
I should consider approval of the recommended bike-share stations as presented in August 29, 2016 memorandum from R.A. Smith. What did they say about,
Weren't there a couple alternatives?
Is it?
what number, oh, okay, with the amendment, number 9, Lake Drive at Capitol East Side to be taken out and replaced with Capitol and Downer.
Second.
Question on station 8, with the BP station at yeah.
I'm sorry, do you want to question?
10. Where you have it on the south side of Newton. It runs, is the station running all the way in front of that private residence? Or is it just end in front of the parking lot for the gas station?
The station would just be in front of the parking lot of the gas station. It wouldn't extend past towards the private residence.
Okay. There was some discussion about an expansion possibly. Yes. Okay. All right. Oh, I see. Okay. I see. That's good. Another. Who owns the stations? Does the village own the stations, or are we turning them over to?
I believe the village has to maintain ownership of the stations for some period of time based on the federal funding, but the idea is that we're ensuring them they're our responsibility, and you're turning them over to us as soon as you are allowed to by the applicable federal regulations.
Based on the grant.
Correct.
And you would be responsible to remove them if ridership was not high, or 10 years from now it wasn't profitable?
We would be, that would be a separate agreement in terms sheet. We'd be comfortable agreeing to remove them if we be responsible for the removal, if we go bankrupt or what have you.
I think the other thing we talked about in committee is if we go ahead, or as we go ahead with these initial stations, if at some point in the very near future we say, you know, this one just it's not getting a lot of use, maybe we should have one over here, and this other alternative up farther north on Wilson Drive, that once we get past the initial installation, making those changes and relocates are much swifter and easier, because we're no longer having to comply with both the agreement that we have and the DOT grant.
Who would pay a new one?
Well, that's the way we negotiate that.
They're very easy to move. We move them without, it is our staff. It's not like it's a massive expense.
Okay, the cost is moving, the cost is having a pad ready with power and.
Right.
Part of the regulatory morass that has to go through here is because there's federal money attached to it. Once you pass the initial phase, and they say, oh, this is, we've got to file an individual wants to run a station, you know, put it on the ground, it becomes easier to navigate.
We don't have to look for tribal artifacts.
For those of you who had not been introduced, this is James Davies from Bubler. He's the acting director right now, and Rachel DeSombre from R.A. Smith, who's the design consultant.
Trustee Rosie.
I am not privy to a conversation that went on in the committee. I would like to know, I believe I read that there's 2 other communities that are also participating in this funding mechanism around us.
Actually, 3 if you want to count Milwaukee.
Yes, Milwaukee, but 2 that haven't.
Yeah,
So,
I'll put it on.
So I think it's Wauwatosa and West Dallas.
Correct.
So I still am hesitant that we need a station at every 1/4 of a mile. And I've read all the materials, thank you, Erica, for the article and all the presentations. I still am not ready to commit to a station at every 1/4 of a mile. I did talk to the mayor of West Dallas yesterday, and he thought their stations were going to be further apart than a half a mile. Not that we have to follow what other people are doing, but so I'm just not comfortable yet that we aren't being very aggressive with our initial locations of our stations.
Bear in mind that all 3 communities got approximately the same amount of grant money. And we happen to be a little over a mile square. West Dallas is much bigger than that, and they got the same amount of money that we got. So we have an advantage.
Right.
And the same with Wauwatosa, although Wauwatosa has 2
But
grants.
hopefully they would be able to, I mean, hopefully their system works as well. A little more further apart, half a mile apart, so.
I mean, I share some of your concerns, I think, on Lake Bluff. You know, between Lake Bluff and Kensington and Lake Bluff and Metro Market is a short, very short distance. However, the Lake Bluff station is, you know, north of the paint store. It's not right on Oakland, it's sort of off Oakland. I mean, I think the issue that people have expressed to me is we're a small village. These are visual clutter, you know, for lack of a better word. Are we putting too many in, and are they, how much use are people really going to get out of them? And are there just, is it just going to be visually unappealing? So, and I do share some of that concern, but I think the location of the Lake Bluff one on Lake Bluff instead of on Oakland, and actually a number of them are kind of off the main drag, you know, which I think will make that better. And then with the Lake Bluff one also, I mean, we discussed if there wasn't a lot of use of that one, that we could move it up to the Congress and Wilson location, which in some ways makes sense because a number of people commute downtown from, you know, on the bike path from there. So, I mean, it is right next to the actual transportation infrastructure that many people use by bike to get to their jobs downtown. So, there is flexibility about it, and I think it's a little bit, we do need to take a little bit of a leap of faith with this. I think some people are thinking, I have my own bike, I don't know why or how I would use this, but I mean, I for example, have a recent trip to California for the first time, took an Uber, so proud of myself. And I mean, it was, anyway, so I mean, you know, it's a little bit of a leap of faith that this is going to be something, you know, that will work. But like I said, they're out of the way. I mean, there's not that many that are right on Capitol and right on Oakland. So I'm less concerned.
I'll just make a comment. You know, you call this visual clutter, that's kind of a negative term. But I think that we could also look at this as making a statement that we're involved in something that is sustainable, it's bike friendly, and you see it in places like Seattle, Chicago, New York, where and you're walking out, that is making a statement that it's a positive thing. And I think going positive
bike
rather than
sharing
negative.
programs. So I don't want anyone to think I'm not. I'm very supportive of the program. I just have hesitation with the spacing.
Okay.
Well, I'd like to thank everyone here who came tonight. I'm very excited that we're advancing this project. It has been a long time in the making. And that we are continuing our commitment, our investment in urban health. So, and I also, we're asked tonight to just approve what you said, the 9 stations. And whether or not we have the funding to finance all of them, then at that point we can come back and discuss alternatives or renegotiate. So, I don't have any concerns. I did hear a lot of comments regarding why Atwater Beach is not one of the considered stations, although I wouldn't have a problem with the station there. I do understand that many people believe that moving it to Downer makes sense, including folks from Butler and the board of Butler. So that makes, thank you for answering those questions, Maureen. And I'm also very excited, like you said before, how this fits in with our Vision 2025 of increasing our intermodal transportation, increasing health and wellness in our village, and also interconnectivity with our surrounding communities. And that's one piece that a lot of people don't really understand or perhaps don't see, is that this isn't just for Shorewood, this is for Shorewoodians and those outside too. So there's parking issues in our village that some people have brought up about UWM students or professors or whatever, parking on some of our residential streets. This could be an opportunity for people as well to use the bubbler bikes to get to UWM from even further stations to the north, which hopefully will occur after Shorewood and West Dallas and Wauwatosa and other municipalities adopt such a program. So I don't really have any concerns with the motion as stated. So I don't know if anyone else wants to address it, but looking forward to advancing the ball.
Any other comments?
Is there any way to not condition the locations, but to stick something in the minutes, or I don't know where it would go, but just that these would be the locations we would approve if we had the funding for all of them, if the funding covers it?
I think that's what we kind of said.
Well, I mean, I think we're contemplating, the motion was, these are the stations to go ahead and continue the evaluation.
Motion was to approve the recommended bike share stations as presented in the August 29, 2016 memorandum from R.A. Smith, with the amendment that station number 9 be located at Capitol and Downer instead of Atwater Park.
You want to say for future, for further, recommend for further evaluation of the station?
We got that whole list of the timetable, we're just in the timetable, they'll come back with a bid and a contract. It's just like if we had $1 million for a road and it comes in $1.2 million, we gotta go back and maybe shorten it up or do less foot of sewer. I mean, it's like it's a construction project or procurement process, so we won't know until we get towards the end and we got our bid, but I support going forward with this. I think it's small, considering what we spend on our streets and maintaining our streets, this is really a minimal investment in a transportation facility that's for the future. And I've really been amazed over the last year, you know, who's going to use it. I go to the lakefront, I go to these, people are constantly down at the lakefront. It's visitors, it's students, it's people doing short rides, commuting to work. I'm amazed. And I think once the network's fully in place, I think people will be using it. I'm hopeful. I think it's a good move.
And I hope that the bids don't come back that exceed our funding, our available funding, but you know, if they do and we get some advocates that try to hold us to 9 stations, bring it on. You know, I want people to be passionate about this, and then we get to say yes or no. Just like with this, every decision we make, somebody's going to be excited and somebody's going to be disappointed. And, so I don't think we can nail. I think we need to get out of the way of the process and let it move forward, and we'll hope for the best on these bids.
Okay. Any other comments? Do we have a motion? And a second. All in favor of the motion as stated, say aye.
Aye.
Didn't see any hands raised from anybody. Thank you. Okay. All right. All in favor of the motion as stated, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Nice work. Howard.
We always wanted it to be unexciting.
Okay, next item actually we're deferring, which is item 2 under public works. And go to that takes us to reports of village officials. I have none. Any trustees?
I attended a meeting last night, last week, Thursday, that was hosted by the Shorewood Foundation, and it was a group of representatives from community charitable organizations, and I represented the village, looking at ways that we do partner, potential ways to partner, kind of areas of focus of need in the community, and to determine whether getting together on a regular basis to discuss these things would be helpful. So there were members of the Shorewood Foundation there, Seed, the Shorewood Events Club, and myself. And so I think that group is going to try to meet again in November just to touch base on what goals might be. There were 2 things that came up that in terms of direct relation to the village, and one was a question about whether it's possible for charitable organizations in town to get to be able to make announcements in Shorewood today without having to buy ad space. So I'm bringing that forward for review, and the other was a suggestion about running events using more volunteer capacity. And so I'm trying to follow up on that to get more indication, because we have been talking about that in the marketing program as well. So I think those are 2 opportunities, and I look forward to reporting back.
Thank you. Any other reports?
Just want to let everyone know that the bid is halfway through their strategic planning process, and so the business community is really rallying. There were a lot of members there for the last 2 meetings, and we have 2 more 4-hour sessions. So hopefully there will be something great that will come out of it, and can be presented here soon.
Does that mean you've had 2 4-hour sessions?
Yeah, we have 2 more, so we're halfway there. And I was really happy to see that the community agenda made it onto our community calendar, because now people can sign up for it through notify me. So I'm really excited about that.
What's the time frame for the strategic plan to be completed? Like, do you have an anticipated target date?
I thought it was like in a month.
Okay,
Great. Great. That's my assumption. I could be wrong.
Any other reports?
There's a Budget and Finance Committee meeting tomorrow evening at 6. The topic is the marketing budget for 2017. Hopefully 2.5 hours. I think that's the only item on.
Actually, I'm going to give a report. I went to Fish and Feather. It was raining. It was a wonderful event, but not too many people were there. But we had chickens and Shorewood, including roosters, for a while. So it was a great little event, and it's too bad with the weather. And people couldn't really go out into the river because the river's too high right now. So they're going to do the wading boots thing. Okay, any other reports?
I have just an update on refuse collection. We're almost to the point of trying to get information in for the board in a manner that I think it would be at an easier time. Understanding it to the budget, how it relates to an actual budget rather than the 10,000 view you got last time. So we're trying to do it as staff, bring it on the next 2 board meetings as on the agenda, rather than having a special meeting. And that if in fact we can't do it in the 2 meetings, at the 2 regular board meetings, to have a special meeting. But I think Mark and Leanne has done a real good job trying to put the numbers together the way that you asked us to do. A little tricky, so it's taken us a little longer, especially during the budget season. Mark has been pretty busy on that, but I think he's got a good system now, and I think he'll, I like
Do you
what he's
think the
doing.
vendors will go with it?
I think it's something we can do at a board meeting rather than a special meeting. So, we're gonna try to get on the 17th agenda.
Okay.
And we'll have it on there and be prepared. And I'll have it at the end. And if we can get to it, we can get to it. But I think we have the ability to do that. That's all I have unless there's questions.
When's the deadline on the contract? What do we have? What timeline are we working on?
Well, we're trying to get this done really to order equipment if we have to. So that's kind of the thing, and it's like 9 months to a year.
Oh, okay.
So, I mean, we're thinking probably September would be a good time.
Next year.
Would be the best time, so we'd like to finish this up by the end of this November.
Oh, okay.
So that's kind of our goal, is to try to answer by the end of November. Obviously, if there's a lot more questions or things we have to, postpone that final decision, we'll do that, but that's our goal.
I forgot, we did have a meeting of Wilson Drive Steering Committee last week, and we met with the consultant and had everyone on the steering committee. Well, there were only 7 of us, I believe, but those who were there had an opportunity to express to the consultant what our issues and concerns were. And we're looking to meet with the consultant in December and have a chance to sort of bat it around a little bit and maybe have the consultant come back with more defined alternatives. And then we kind of moved the public meeting on the alternatives. We're talking about January now, just to let everyone know the schedule was pushed out a little bit on that.
Takes us to items for future consideration.
I would like either some sort of discussion on our central business district zoning code in relation to how it is supporting or not supporting the master plan or central district business district master plan, whatever it's called, but in regards for signs and parking, and really understanding better or maybe making changes so that we can reassign authority from commissions back to staff.
We started with the committee on that.
Well, it'd be community and business relations, I guess. It'd be the one, the plan commission does that, so they can.
And design review.
And design review for sure, but the business community would be the best one.
Perfect.
Because they can recommend things to the zone. If it's,
That's right.
If it's signs, it's in the sign code. There's some zoning, but I think that's a good practice thing.
Signs, and what was the other item?
Parking.
Parking signs?
No, parking and signs in the central business
Two
district.
separate items.
Regulations that go around.
Parking would be in your public safety committee, which you're already talking about.
It's just a review of the zoning code to make sure it's consistent with our state, whatever.
I'll work with Tammy to see how that, what she wants to frame that. And that staff needs to do, to get you something to start with.
Correct.
I talked to Trustee Bach first, and we kind of are suggesting that JP&L and Community Business Relations kind of team up and take 2 pieces of a puzzle. So around diversity and welcoming initiatives, Community Business Relations could explore a resolution for a welcoming policy, or a resolution for welcoming and diversity in the community, and then JP&L can look at the HR side of it in terms of diversity initiatives, staff recruitment, or reviewing staff. maybe that could even be a by board, we could coordinate with schools as well. And then the second was, I was wondering if the staff attorney could prepare a memo for JPNL, or for everybody, on quasi judicial function for boards and committees, which does that apply to all committees and what that means, and if we're in alignment for that in practice.
In terms of due process and ensuring that steps are taken to give applicants their due process and make sure that we're not contravening any existing ordinances, those types of things.
Yes, that's a good place to start. And we'll see if we have other questions then.
Any other items for future? Yes.
Yeah, in committee today, we got into a discussion of design review board and whether we could, as a village board, maybe have some discussions or involvement with design review board to ensure that we're aligned with them in the actions they're taking in regards both to residential matters that come before them and commercial.
So what would be the item?
Maybe a joint meeting with the village board and design review board talking about some recent decisions and giving more specific direction to design review board in terms of
Zoning code policy,
What? I didn't hear you.
desires of the board, is that, I mean, like,
yeah, I mean, I think there's a perception that residents, that there can be a little bit of nitpickiness in dealing with residential issues, and a different standard when dealing with the commercial issues, and just overall.
So committee?
Committee, but the design, I think you should wait till the design guidelines are redone, which they're working on. And you're gonna vote on those, so that might be the time.
Are those for residents or businesses or what?
I believe for everything, yes.
they're for residents,
And business.
not the ones that are working on.
Not the ones that
No,
are
they're just working
residents.
on residential.
Well, is there any
They
sense,
should look at the businesses one too.
They're not yet.
They should.
is there any sense in at least getting a report to the board on what that review entails? Because if we have.
I can give I obviously it's not on the agenda,
Yeah.
but I would be glad to have Eric go right on.
Because there's, if some guidelines are being produced, I hate to have
Wait till
the
last
group go
minute.
through a lot of work and then come again and say, no, that's all wrong, or it's half wrong, or here's some things we'd like to contemplate.
Have like an interim.
Just,
Yeah, I also would think that I would like probably have our attorney review the board on the role of design review board. I think that's.
Yeah, that would be.
Yeah, I mean, that would be very.
And does the village board have a role if we feel design review board is maybe going too far in one direction or another? What can the village board do other than remove individuals and appoint different individuals? Is there any way for us to give direction to the design review board?
I can ask our attorney. Usually they're separated on purpose. Just like the planning commission is separated on purpose, so that politics doesn't get involved. But I think our attorney, we've had many talks together on that, so.
I think that ties into looking at the ordinances to see what authority has been granted to the agency.
We'll see if we can figure that out. It's a great.
Well, an update on the guidelines would be great.
I'll ask Karen to do that.
Sure.
That's great.
Any other items for future?
Yes, I sent an email requesting from the village manager a report or evaluation on the camp hacker party event, just to, because I think since we approved it in that new area and there were some questions about how it would actually work out because it was a little bit more complicated, that, and I think we had requested, we said that it would be, that we would get feedback from staff in all departments. Right, and report to the board, just so, because we let camp know that it wasn't a guarantee that just because it was granted this year, that it would need to go well, and if there were, and we also are preparing street festival policy guidelines, so that'll help.
So how did it go? Anybody go?
Yeah, it's popular, it's really cool, took a lot of pictures. I will say they were very aggressive in cleaning up and breaking down the party at the end of the event, to the dismay of many of the attendees. Yeah, it was very well attended.
Our problem was bringing bottles from Walgreens, so that was that big problem. So I remember put that in the report. That kind of, that's not exactly the way it should be done, so.
Bringing bottles from where?
Alcohol from
Carry-out.
Walgreens carry-outs.
Oh.
Drinking the
Liquor
water.
license, that's what happens when you get Walgreens, a liquor license.
Yes, well, and Sedgwick's too. Sedgwick's also got business, so.
So it was treated like a block party.
More or less, yes. So we'll write that out. Thank you for reminding me of it.
Okay.
And I have one more thing, I would like to purchase 2 more cameras for the committee rooms, but I don't know if I need to make a motion, or if we need to bring that here. Right, to vote on? I know we have money, but I don't know.
It's money.
Because we were way under budget, I think, on what we.
Right, I think it was cameras budgeted 5,000 and we spent 500, so.
Way to go, Sam.
So does that have to come back?
Of course, because we would
Yeah,
have to talk about hiring someone, upload and all that stuff, so we'd like to see how that would be cost. How can we get that paid for? That's all.
Just the housekeeping, I had suggested to the village manager and requested that our meeting tomorrow night be held in here, since there's a lot of interest in marketing, so we may have more people in attendance. We also have several presenters for that, and then that way it could be videotaped.
Can we do all of our budget meetings like that? Since we only have capability of videotaping from this meeting?
Court was in session.
Yeah, court was in session last time.
Or whenever it's open, I should say.
Should we, the marketing presentation, I know trustee Rosa and I have already seen it. Is that publicly available? Has that been posted? Is that publicly available?
After, before night. Just updated it today.
Oh, it's
Some
updated?
questions,
Oh.
highlighting who does what.
Thank you.
When that's done, there'll be some last minute changes.
Will it be the same packet that we saw last week?
With some changes based on
Yeah, okay.
your questions. So,
So anyways, I love your idea. Because if it's open, then maybe we can use this until we get a camera in the committee rooms.
Is everybody okay with
For
that?
the budget meeting, I mean, we're holding it here because of the size of the, I mean, I'm not sure this room accommodates the I mean,
Yeah, if you don't,
I
if you're not comfortable with it, that's fine, it's just a suggestion.
don't want to come up.
I mean, the budget's a big deal, so the more we can.
You'd have to have a pretty high boredom threshold to want to change some of the budget sessions, I would say. So Mark's not here, I can say. Who's got much faith? I agree that they should be taped.
It is, we have to post signs because it's a agenda for the committee room. That's a big deal.
the only difficulty is
Yeah, what?
Oh, it's over here.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Any other items for future consideration? Seeing none, take a motion to go into closed session.
I move we go into closed session under the provisions of Wisconsin State Statutes 19.85, parent 1, and C, considering employment, promotion, compensation, performance evaluation data of any public employee over which this government body has jurisdiction or exercise responsibility, more specifically, discussion and possible consideration of employment separation. the Village of Shorewood reserves the right to reconvene in open session to discuss and take action regarding the subject of the closed meeting discussion.
Second. Discussion, it's the roll call vote.
Trustee Menza.
Aye.
Trustee Bachhorst.
Yes.
Trustee Maher.
Aye.
Trustee McKay.
Yes.
Trustee Rozick.
Yes.
Trustee Zobek.
Aye.
President Johnson. The vote is 7-0.
Okay. Closed session.